Okay, folks, get ready to blush because today we're going deep diving into a topic that's very likely to make you blush, the female orgasm.
Yeah.
And you might want to grab a fan because we're not just talking about one type of female orgasm. Our source material says there are 10.
10 different kinds.
And distinct types of orgasms that women can experience.
It really speaks to the incredible variety and complexity of female sexual response.
I am ready to be schooled.
Yeah.
So let's start with the basics, like Orgasm 101.
Okay.
What's actually happening in the body when a woman climaxes?
Well, in the simplest terms, an orgasm is like a really powerful response, physiological response to sexual stimulation.
Okay.
You experience rhythmic contractions of your pelvic floor muscles, a surge of feel-good hormones like oxytocin, and then, of course, this incredible wave of pleasurable sensation.
So it's not just like a physical thing, it's emotional, hormonal.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's a whole body experience.
A roller coaster.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's get into the different types, starting with the one that pretty much everyone's heard of, the clitoral orgasm.
Right, and this is the most common type, and for good reason.
Yeah.
The clitoris is packed with millions of nerve endings, more than any other part of the human body.
Millions.
Millions.
Wow.
Stimulating it directly or indirectly increases blood flow and creates that intense, explosive sensation.
It's like the Las Vegas Strip of nerve endings down there. No wonder it gets so much attention.
Right.
Okay. But now let's talk about the mysterious G-spot. Is it real? Is it a myth? Help us unravel this.
Well, the G-spot has been a topic of debate for decades now.
Right.
Some researchers believe it's a distinct area within the vagina located on the front wall,
Okay.
while others argue that it's just part of the clitoral network.
Oh, so it's like the Bigfoot of female anatomy. Some people swear they found it, others say it's just a legend.
Exactly.
But what about the people who say they have G-spot orgasms? What are they feeling?
Well, those who report having them often describe them as deeper and more intense than clitoral orgasms.
Interesting. So maybe there is something to this, like hidden pleasure zone.
Maybe.
Okay, now moving on to another area that's often associated with pleasure, the vagina. Tell us about vaginal orgasms.
Okay. So when we talk about vaginal orgasms, we're usually referring to climax achieved through penetration without specifically targeting the clitoris or the G-spot.
Got it.
The vagina itself has several erogenous zones, like the A-spot, which is located near the cervix.
Okay.
And even the cervix itself can be sensitive. These areas are rich in nerves and can create deep, pleasurable sensations.
So it's not just about hitting one magic button. It's about appreciating the whole landscape.
Right, like that.
Okay, now let's venture into maybe some uncharted territory. Anal orgasms.
Okay.
How do those work in women?
So anal orgasms in women often happen due to indirect stimulation. The anus and rectum are very close to the vagina and clitoris and share common nerve pathways.
Oh.
So stimulating one area can create sensations in the others. Plus, the anal region is connected to those all-important pelvic floor muscles, which are key for those orgasmic contractions.
So it's all connected.
It is.
Like a domino effect of pleasure.
Exactly.
Okay. Now this next one totally blew my mind. Nipple orgasms.
Yeah.
Wait, are those a real thing?
They are absolutely a real thing. While research on this is still limited, it's clear that nipple stimulation can lead to orgasm in some women. Remember those millions of nerve endings we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, the nipples have a lot of them too.
Really?
And studies have shown that stimulating them can actually light up the same part of the brain that's activated during genital stimulation.
Whoa, so it's like a pleasure pathway that runs throughout the body.
It seems that way.
Our bodies are incredible.
They are.
Okay, now let's talk about blended orgasms.
Okay.
What exactly are those? Are we mixing cocktails now?
You could say that. A blended orgasm is simply a climax that results from stimulating multiple erogenous zones at the same time.
Okay.
So, think clitoral, G-spot, nipple, even anal sensations, all coming together for a truly powerful experience.
Okay, that sounds like fireworks.
It can be pretty amazing.
Okay. Now, what about multiple orgasms? Is that a myth or a superpower that only some women possess?
Here's where things get really interesting. Unlike men, women don't typically experience a refractory period after orgasm.
Okay.
This means they can potentially have multiple orgasms in a row without needing a break to reset.
Hold the phone. Are you saying women have a biological advantage in the pleasure department?
You could definitely say that. While not all women experience multiple orgasms, the potential is there.
Wow.
And it really highlights the unique and fascinating nature of female sexual response.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. But there's still one more type of orgasm to discuss, and I'm a little hesitant to ask about it. Squirting.
Okay.
What is it, and is it related to orgasm?
Squirting is the release of a clear fluid from the urethra during orgasm, and it's thought to be related to bladder control. While some consider it a type of female ejaculation, there's still debate about the exact mechanisms and whether it's a separate phenomenon or a variation of arousal response.
So it's still a bit of a mystery then.
It is.
I love that there's still so much to learn about female sexuality.
There is.
But we have two more wild cards to discuss. Orgasms that can happen during exercise and even in your sleep. This is where I need you to break it down for me.
All right. You're right. Those are definitely the ones that raise a lot of eyebrows. Exercise-induced orgasms, sometimes called coregasms, are more common than you might think.
Okay.
Research suggests that certain core-focused exercises, like intense abdominal workouts, can trigger orgasmic sensations in some women. And sleep orgasms, similar to male wet dreams, are often triggered by erotic dreams.
Okay.
And they can result in physical responses like lubrication and even climax.
Wait, so you're telling me some women are getting off from crunches and dreams. I need to seriously up my workout and dream game.
Right? It's pretty amazing.
This is incredible.
It is, and it just shows how interconnected our bodies and minds are. Sexual response isn't always tied to specific activities or situations. It can be sparked in unexpected ways. But even with all these different types, it's important to remember that each individual's experience is unique. There's no right way to have an orgasm.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Exactly. What matters most is that you're exploring your own body.
Right.
Discovering what feels good and communicating your needs and desires to your partner.
So it's all about like embracing the journey and throwing out the rule book.
Exactly.
But with all these different types,
Yeah.
is there anything that like connects them all, like a common thread running through the experience?
Absolutely. At their core, all orgasms involve the same basic physiological processes.
Okay.
It starts with stimulation, which sends signals to the brain, leading to increased blood flow to the genitals. This increases sensitivity and eventually triggers those rhythmic muscle contractions in the pelvic floor, which is what we experience as that peak of pleasure.
So it's like a chain reaction, starting with a spark and ending in like this fireworks display of sensation.
I love that analogy. Yes, precisely. And during that process, your body releases a cocktail of feel-good hormones, like oxytocin, which plays a crucial role in creating feelings of closeness and connection.
That explains why sex can be such a powerful bonding experience.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, why is there so much focus on like the different types of female orgasms? Do men have different types too?
That's a great question, and it reflects a historical bias in sex research.
Okay.
For a long time, the male experience was considered the default.
Okay.
And female sexuality was often misunderstood or even dismissed. Thankfully, things are changing. More research is being done on female sexuality, and we're finally starting to understand the incredible diversity of women's experiences.
Yeah, it's about time. But to answer my own question, do men experience different types of orgasms too?
While the male experience is generally considered more straightforward, there's growing recognition that men can experience a wider range of sensations too.
Okay.
For example, some men report experiencing prostate orgasms through anal stimulation.
So it's not as simple as we once thought, even for men. There's always more to explore. Now, I have to be honest, all this talk about different orgasms has left me feeling a little overwhelmed.
I can imagine.
What are some key takeaways our listeners should remember from this deep dive?
I think the most important takeaway is that there's no right or wrong way to experience orgasm.
Okay.
Every woman is different, and what works for one person may not work for another. The key is to explore your own body, discover what feels good, and communicate your needs and desires to your partner.
That's great advice. It's all about self-discovery and open communication. But what if someone is struggling to reach orgasm? Or they're not experiencing the types of orgasms we've discussed?
That's a valid concern, and it's more common than you might think.
Okay.
Many factors can impact a person's ability to orgasm, including stress, anxiety, relationship issues, hormonal changes, and even certain medications.
Oh, wow.
So if someone is consistently struggling, it's important to talk to a healthcare professional.
So there's no shame in seeking help if you need it.
Yeah.
This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening.
Yeah.
I feel like I've learned so much about the female body and the diversity of sexual experience.
Good.
But I still have a few lingering questions. Like with all this talk about anatomy and nerve endings and things,
Yeah.
I can't help but wonder, does the intensity or the type of orgasm change as women age?
That's a fascinating question, and one that researchers are still exploring. But we do know that hormonal shifts throughout a woman's life, particularly during menopause, can influence sexual response.
So it's not like hitting a pleasure plateau and staying there forever.
Not at all. Sexuality is a lifelong journey, and it's constantly evolving. While some women might experience changes in sensitivity or lubrication as they age, others find that their orgasms become even more intense and fulfilling.
That's reassuring. It's like fine wine, it just gets better with time.
I like that.
But speaking of changes, do you think cultural attitudes towards female pleasure are evolving too?
I think we're definitely seeing a shift toward more openness and acceptance.
Yeah.
The more we talk about female pleasure, the more we normalize it and empower women to embrace their sexuality.
I love that. It's like we're finally breaking free from those outdated taboos and embracing the full spectrum of female experience.
Yeah.
Okay, before we wrap up, I have one last burning question.
Okay.
Knowing all this about the 10 types of female orgasms, what advice would you give to someone wanting to explore their own body? Or a partner's?
My advice would be to approach it with curiosity, patience, and a sense of adventure. Don't be afraid to experiment, communicate, and discover what feels good. And remember, there's no pressure to experience every type of orgasm or to achieve climax every time. Pleasure is a journey, not a destination.
Beautifully said. I think that's a perfect note to end on. So to all our listeners out there, go forth and explore your own personal pleasure pathways. You never know what you might discover.
And remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about your body and your sexuality, the more empowered you'll be to create a fulfilling and joyful sexual experience.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of female orgasms. We hope you learned something new and maybe even got a little inspired to do some exploring of your own. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay. Well, you know,